So welcome to the PT's PT podcast. I am your host, Dr. Sean Lordan, and with me today is our clinic director at our Sutton location, Dr. Steph Franciose. I really wanted to mispronounce your last name just to, get it going on the right.
I appreciate you not doing
vibes. But Stephanie's a tremendous physical therapist of ours, and she's got how many years of experience now?
It'll be 10 this year.
10 years of experience and almost 3 years now in the role of clinic director?
2 years clinic director, 3.5 here as a clinician.
Awesome. Yeah. So we're going to have a fun talk today, and welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Cool. So tell us, Steph, a little bit about your journey into physical therapy and, the journey from staff physical therapist to clinic director.
Sure. Yeah. So I went to college knowing I wanted to work in healthcare and do something science related for sure. So my summer before senior year in college, I decided to set up some shadow experiences with different providers, NP, PA, physical therapist, OT, all that good stuff. And the first one I had was with a PT at Whittier Rehab in Westboro. And that day we worked with one patient who had a stroke, and just seeing his journey and kind of how the PT and the PTA worked with him and his progression just within one session of, never having taken steps independently to taking steps in the parallel bars to taking steps with a cane, really just got me super excited and thinking about how cool it would be to be a part of someone's journey like that. So I actually ended up canceling all my other shadow experiences and began applying to PT school. And so my first job was at an outpatient clinic, hospital-based. I was there for almost 7 years. It was where one of my clinicals was. And then I've been at Concierge for 3.5. Started as a staff physical therapist, transitioned up to a team lead, and have been the clinic director for almost 2 years now.
That's great. And you command a team of probably about 12 people.
Yeah, we have a good-sized team.
Yeah. So if you weren't a physical therapist, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
See, that's the easiest question you could ask me, because my dream has always been to be a game show host. I love Jeopardy. I love The Price is Right. I love all the good game shows, and I think that getting to have that energy and get people excited about winning prizes and doing ridiculous tasks and games and things like that just sounds like a dream. So
yeah. So you heard it here first. Drew Carey is out.
Yep.
Steph Franciose is it.
Tag me in. I'm ready.
Let's talk about clinical excellence, patient-centered care. I feel like those are two taglines that if you put into ChatGPT, what does a great physical therapy clinic look like? And it's excellent clinical care, and they care about their patients. What do you feel like is different here that we do to actually embody that?
Yeah. So something that I think patients and clinicians here would agree with is that when people walk into this place, they feel like they're at home. They walk in and they feel well cared for as people. They feel like they matter. They feel like they're in Cheers. Everybody knows their name, and everybody's there to greet them with a smile and kind words and a genuine question of how are you, not just a fluff off question. So people walk in and the atmosphere is warm and welcoming and inviting, and people come in knowing that they're not just a diagnosis. They're not just, I'm Joe with knee pain. This is Joe who's married and has 2 kids and is battling cancer and all these things. We know them as people, and they feel cared for as people. So yes, we're here to get them better physically, but also to show them and demonstrate that level of care from a human perspective too, to make them know that they matter here and their presence matters here. Not just by their one provider, but from everyone as soon as they walk in the door at the front desk, to our aides, to our clinicians, to our billing department. Everybody here is here to care for and care about them as people. In terms of excellence, I think that something we do well here that is unique is we're treating people not just the one area of pain or impairment that they're struggling with. We're treating the whole body, right? We're treating the person with ankle pain who also has some hip dysfunction, who also has some thoracic mobility impairments, because all those things are tied together and contributing or retracting from their ability to function in life. So we're not just treating the one small impairment that they have, that we're treating their whole body, because they're people. They're not just one single joint.
Yeah. And I obviously talk about physical therapists being movement specialists, sure. Right? And I think that that's why we got the degrees in the first place is
Yeah.
to help people move better. When did you really start understanding how the total body kind of movement? When did you start really understanding how one region connected to another region?
Yeah, I think that I had some really good mentors early on in my career who had really good tips and tricks in terms of, showing me ways that thoracic mobility can affect hip internal and external rotation, or, patella mobilizations can affect ankle pain. And so I think I just was exposed to a lot of different clinicians who treated with regional interdependence and showed that, affecting an area up or down the chain is going to have an impact on the joint that's dysfunctional at a certain time. And then I think as I gained more and more experience, I realized that, when a patient comes in with a goal that they're looking to achieve, it's not just related to one area of dysfunction. It's related to their whole body and how it's operating kind of together as one unit.
Yeah. I see that new grads generally struggle with seeing the whole picture, right? And we kind of expect that,
Sure.
As a more experienced physical therapist. What is one piece of advice that you give to new grads, when it comes to patient interaction and communication?
I would say in terms of communication, the best skill that you have to offer is listening, because patients are going to give you the answers. It may not be in the most direct way. It may not be in the way you necessarily want to or feel best equipped to hear it, but they're going to give you the answers. And so if you really listen to what they're saying to you, you'll be equipped with the follow-up questions that will get you to the end point that you're looking for. And so not kind of going in with a predisposed mindset about what you assume about them, but waiting to hear the answer and fully hearing the answer, and then kind of gauging your follow-up questions or gauging your course from there based on what they tell you, not just what you see on paper, not just what the 10 other people who came in before them came in with. Just uniquely listening to their story and what they have to tell you.
Yeah. Let's talk about what excites you about being a physical therapist.
Yeah, so I am someone who loves a puzzle. I love to be challenged, and I love to, when options A through D don't work, like I'm here for E through G. So that's why I really enjoy treating patients who are neurologically based, have neurological conditions. I love treating pediatrics and vestibular dysfunction, and concussion and all those things. And the reason is that, every patient is different no matter what they're coming in for. You can have 12 different people with knee pain and they'll all be different. But when something is affecting your brain, the level and degree to which each person is different is just exponentially higher than a lot of times orthopedic conditions can be. And so it's just really fascinating to me how the brain works, and it's fascinating to me to be able to apply, the functional movement techniques that I have in my toolkit to a person who has multiple levels and layers to their condition.
Yeah, I think, I guess my next obvious question is, now that you're a clinic director, and you have been for a while, how did that change happen over time, and sort of what do you enjoy now about being a clinic director that you were struggling with when you were first learning the job?
Sure. So I would describe leadership and being a clinic director as a journey, and it's a journey that I think I'll be on and forever as I continue through this role. It was very challenging for me at first. I love PT. I love being a PT, and I'm experienced enough to know that I'm good at doing that. Leading and helping others to grow is a totally different skill set, and one that initially was very challenging for me in a lot of ways. I think that things that came more naturally for me were leading by example, encouraging, building people up and giving them that rah-rah cheerleader that makes them feel like they can do things well and feel believed in and cared for as a person. The opposite end of that, or the end of that does align and go in conjunction with supporting and positivity in leadership, is holding people accountable and having difficult conversations and giving feedback. And feedback that is sometimes really positive and sometimes more on the constructive end of things. And that is something that I I would say, does not come naturally for me. And it took a lot of kind of reflection on myself and my intention behind doing those things and the need for those things, and some, encouragement from my leadership in order to get there and feel like that was just as important as all the positive, kind affirmation type pieces of leadership. And I think that it's not only helped me lead others well, it's helped me kind of receive and be led well.
Yeah, and we talk about accountability, right, as really a level of kindness, right? So to be kind is to hold somebody accountable.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of our leadership coaches uses the term clear as kind, right? And so in terms of holding people accountable, I can't expect another person to know what my standard of care is, what my standard of staff is, unless I'm very explicit about what that looks like. People can't reach goals or reach a standard unless they know what that standard is. So by not sharing, the areas that need to grow and the areas that need to improve, I'm doing them a disservice by not being open and honest about that. Because then when it comes time to, discuss overall performance at a review or in a more formal setting, they're going to be blindsided. And that's when I know I haven't done my job, because everybody should know kind of how they're measuring up to what our expectation and standard is throughout the whole process of their employment, not just at a formal sit down. Because I should be giving that information to them regularly and kindly, but in an honest manner, so that they really know what they're doing really well and should continue to do really well, and what they still need to grow in, and how I can help support them and get them there.
Yeah, and that's easily kind of goes into my next question, right? So when you look at a new grad PT or even a new hire PT who's new to our company, what kind of stands out to you as, things that you look for when you're mentoring your younger PTs? Like, what can a younger PT do to be a better mentee?
Yeah, I think that responding well to feedback is a skill. And I think that it's not one that comes naturally to anybody. But if you can really focus on taking feedback as a kindness and knowing that it's difficult to give feedback also. So I'm giving you this feedback because I care about you and I know you can do better and I know you can get there and I want to help you get there. So being able to receive feedback well is really important, especially as a new hire and a new grad, because people are only giving you that feedback because they know and want you to do better. And I think also just having some personal responsibility and feeling motivated and driven on your own, and not just always waiting for either your superior or another person to tell you to do something. Taking initiative and saying, I know this needs to get done. Like, I know we usually do this. No one's doing it right now, so I'm going to do that. My patient canceled, so I'm going to help start another clinician's patient. I have some downtime. Let me take a continuing ed class. Let me ask my clinic director, hey, could I help you out with anything? Can I take on another patient? Things like that. So just recognizing a need and then being willing and kind of accountable to yourself and to your team to say, I'm going to just go do that and not wait for someone to ask me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You bring up kind of two different types of people that want to grow, right? Yeah. So you get somebody who enjoys growing, but you need to shape them, right? And we kind of call those people like clay, right? Like they're not going to go take that extra patient or, maybe get a hot pack for that, other, PT if they need help, or show some exercises to help out the aides. Like that's sort of somebody who needs to be told, like, hey, this is your next learning opportunity. I think when you really start to find those special, like those top 1 to 2 to 3% of PTs are the PTs that not only want to learn, but actively push themselves.
Pursue learning.
And pursue new skills.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. So, in terms of leadership positions, right? I think in PT, it's kind of tough, right? Because, there really is sort of a stack of potential like ladder positions, so to speak, in outpatient PT, or really in home health and any other kind of position. There's clinic directors, team leads, and then there's maybe a regional director, there's chief operators, and then there's vice presidents, CEOs, and things like that. So, for those who eventually want to move into leadership positions, what skills would you recommend them focusing on early on in their career?
So I would say there's multiple pieces to that. So in terms of clinical skills, you need to be exceptional at your craft. Like, you need to be really good at being a PT, because you're going to then be asking the people who work for you to be excellent. So you need to be willing to be the best at your own specialty, your own area of expertise, so that you can help shape and grow other people, because they're going to be looking to you as the go-to person. So you need to be really good and really confident in what you're doing clinically, first and foremost. I would say also, I think a leader should never ask something of their team that they're not willing to do themselves. So whether that be taking a student, whether that be taking an extra patient, whether that be leading an in-service, whatever that looks like, demonstrate those things, because your leadership team is going to acknowledge and recognize that you're willing to go above and beyond and do more, because leaders do more. It's okay to be a staff clinician who just kind of goes through their day and does their stuff, and that's great. And there's a time and a place for those people too. But if you're looking to grow, you need to demonstrate that you're willing to do things that go above and beyond just the run-of-the-mill day as a clinician. I would recommend too, honestly, I gained a lot from a leadership training we did here. And I think that helped hone in some of my skills or kind of uncover skills I didn't know I could or did have. So I would recommend finding like a course on leadership, a course on difficult conversations. Like, that's a big part of being a leader. So some of those resources are out there. I think another thing is, like, you're taking initiative to take some of those courses or do some of those things to kind of put you above and ahead of other clinicians.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about really is just genuine curiosity, right? And what you do really, really well is reflect. And I feel like there are two different levels of people who grow and learn too, on top of the clay and the sponge, right?
Yeah.
It's those who can really accelerate and kind of hit that, the rocket ship of taking off, or the ones who make the mistakes or have the difficult conversations and then reflect on them, and then learn from the hard, and everybody's different. Every conversation is different. Every leadership opportunity is different, or way to lead. But I think when you reflect, and I kind of touch on this in my book, is like reflecting at the end of the week. What went well? Who did I meet this week? What went well? What didn't go so well? Yeah. What can I do to improve? Who can I ask for advice to be a little bit better, 1% better next week?
Yeah.
I think those are really important things. And especially, you talk about avoiding burnout. I think that, and I want to ask you about burnout and what that looks like and how you avoid it, and how you would recommend new grads avoid it. But we don't really see that here and I think it's because people genuinely love doing the job.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think that something that we all have in common here is we genuinely enjoy being PTs. And so even on days where things are difficult or things don't go according to plan, because we're working with people, so there are days like that, we can kind of lean into the fact that we love what we do and getting to help other people, and keeping your eye on the fact that, like, you're actually able to make a genuine difference in someone's life. And, like, that's an opportunity. Even on a day where it's hard, even on a day where things don't go the way you want them to, you have an opportunity to actually change someone's life, and that is a gift and a privilege. So I think kind of keeping your lens in a more kind of zoomed out place helps you to realize that, again, even on a day where you feel overwhelmed or stressed, that you're given a gift every day by getting to change someone's life and make them function better and do things that they weren't able to do before or didn't know they'd ever be able to get back to. That's within kind of the clinic, and also leaning on your teammates, right? Like, we are all in this together. I mean, not to quote High School Musical here, but
to quote High School
Musical, like, your team is here to support you and help you to kind of shake off those tough days and kind of approach the next day with a fresh lens and a fresh perspective and feeling refreshed. And we all have those days, and that's why we have a team to kind of support and lean on. Outside of work, I think it's really important to have hobbies and things that bring you joy personally, because working with people, I think, can be taxing at times. So for me, I really enjoy traveling. I really enjoy hiking. I like going for walks. I like to be outdoors and do things. And that's a really good reset and refresh for me. And that kind of helps me to maintain the view of the job I get to do really gets to change people's lives, and that's awesome.
Yeah. So you mentioned, hiking and traveling. If you could travel anywhere in the world for a month without me calling you and saying, "Hey, Steph, I need you to come back to work."
Yeah.
Which don't get any ideas.
A month? That sounds great.
Where would you go?
So I have two answers to that. My biggest bucket list goal is to visit all 50 states before I'm 50. So I would like to hit the other, what am I missing? 18 states. So I would love to do across the US road trip to hit and get my under 50 goal. But I think if we're looking for a super exciting trip, I would love to go to like Australia, New Zealand, and do some hiking and some exploration over there. It's such a long trip that I feel like a month is the perfect amount of time there. So I'll be putting that PTO request in soon.
Yeah, and I'll be denying it pretty soon too. Looking back at your early career, what's one piece of advice you wish you had as a new grad?
One piece of advice I wish I had as a new grad is to continue to always ask questions, because it's the time in your career where there's no wrong question. Like if you're a new grad and you're just new to the field, asking seasoned clinicians like, "Hey, can I see how you do that? Hey, can you show me that technique I saw you do? Can you show me that exercise? Can I watch you treat and do that intervention on that vestibular patient? I'd really like to get into that." Because I think that, being a lifelong learner starts the day you become a PT. I mean, it starts long before that, but you're kind of setting the stage for your career that I still want to learn and grow, and I always am going to have questions, and seeking out kind of skills that you don't have yet and putting more tools in your tool belt from other more seasoned clinicians or clinicians who are new too that, do something different or had a clinical that was different than yours, or, specialize in a different area. I think asking questions and just always seeking more information and more ways to improve your skill set is just going to set you up to always be better at helping your patients.
Yeah, just ties into the 1% better.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think, a lot of new grads are nervous about feeling stupid, and I think, you want to put yourself in an environment that rewards curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we get new grad PTs, and I understand like student loans are expensive. You want to position yourself as strong financially as possible when you graduate, but choose the job or choose the clinic that aligns with your values when you first graduate, because you shouldn't be choosing a job based on money for your first, all things equal, right? Like you should be choosing a job based on the correct fit and the team that's there, so that because you're going to turn into an evolution of that team, whatever that team is.
Yeah.
So I just can't understate that enough. Like, and I think it's important to, salary is an important part of the picture. Yeah. But creating a skill set when you're young is just the most important part of the picture. Yeah,
and being at a place that's going to invest in you, right? Like they're going to invest in you as a person and as a clinician, and want to facilitate your growth as a clinician, because some places do that really well and some don't. And you're going to be set up better for success if you're at a place where you feel like people are investing in your learning, investing in your career, investing in your skills, investing in what you're interested and passionate about growing in. Because if I'm really passionate about something but nobody's helping me get there, that passion's going to die. You want to facilitate that passion, not just kind of let it wither away.
Yeah, and I think, we've obviously morphed and changed, and obviously we've just gotten more robust because we've grown as a company. And we have many different tracks now, but really it's we've got different tracks. We've got leadership and communication tracks. We've got sort of a more entrepreneurial track that we're rolling out, and sort of like clinic director, profit sharing type track as we open up new clinics that we're rolling out. But I think you as the PT or the younger new grad PT need to come prepared with what you're looking for too. Right? Maybe you want to be a clinical specialist, and that's great. Maybe you want to open up your own clinic someday. That's awesome too. But like, go work for somebody who's done it successfully and scaled something. Like that's how you're going to learn. Ask a lot of questions, and ask how much time you get with the people that are the key decision makers. That's another. If that's what you want to be someday.
Sure.
What are the biggest mistakes you see that new grad PTs make, and how do you feel like they can avoid it?
I think that not using your resources is a mistake that new grad PTs make sometimes. You know, they're like you said, they're nervous, they're scared to ask questions or not look intelligent. And I would say that there's a bunch of times every single week where I don't know the answer to everything, right? Like, it's not my job to know everything. It's my job to be able to find out the answer to everything. So I would say, you know, not seeking out answers, not kind of being willing to be a little bit vulnerable and say, I don't really know, but I'm going to find someone who does. I think that's a mistake that new grad clinicians make. I think that not prioritizing mentorship is a mistake that some new grads make, right? Not choosing a company or a clinic that is going to give them a mentor to help them grow and shape and mold them into, you know, a higher level, next level clinician as they gain more experience. And I think that it's something that should be one of the first questions you ask on an interview is, what's your mentorship for new grads look like? Because that's like, you know, such an impressionable time in your career, and you really don't want to choose a place that's not going to kind of help grow you during that phase of your career. I would say those are some areas that I think that new grads kind of should be more aware of, I guess, earlier on in their career. I think too, letting the patient sit in the driver's seat sometimes is one that new grad PTs can kind of fall into. I think that, you know, patients come in, a lot of times they're older than you, a lot of times they have more life experience, a lot of times they, you know, maybe know enough to be a little bit dangerous, but not enough to make the right decision for themselves. And if you're not confident and you're new and just kind of learning, you know, the run-of-the-mill day-to-day stuff, it might feel really appealing to say, like, well, they think they're better, so okay, like, let's just do what the patient said, or, you know, whatever. But you're in the driver's seat, right? You're the expert. You're the clinician. They're coming to you because they're not able to do something that you can provide for them. So just remember that, you know, they're seeking out your care because you're the expert in this particular area. So act that way and know that and feel confident in that. You went to school for a long time and, you know, you did a lot of hours. So, you know, demonstrate that to the patient because you know more than you think you do.
You know, I think my personal favorite example of that is letting the patient set the plan of care. Right? And I think when you lack confidence as a new grad, you're like, yeah, like, you're feeling better? Okay, like, once a week is fine.
Sure.
It's
yeah.
And we know that that's a maintenance level of PT. Right? Like, they're not going to get any better. They're probably not going to get worse. But they're not going to get any better at once a week. Even twice a week is like, you know, we talk about it all the time in our meetings. It's like twice a week that's the standard across physical therapy,
right,
you know, across the country. And, you know, I understand it. People live busy lives, but it's like, if you go to the gym twice a week, you're not really going to get stronger.
No.
It's just, and we're anticipating that almost, I guess, 80 to 100% of people are doing their home exercise programs. Right. So I'm such a firm believer, and it's why I'm so gung-ho about starting the plan of care strong, so that people feel different and they feel a change. And then once they feel a change, it's so easy to be like, hey, listen, you know, you're feeling better. I need you to do these 3 exercises at home consistently, and then we can do twice a week. Like, and you're really focusing on the manual therapy piece. Right.
Yeah. You get them to buy in for a couple of weeks, and they're with you for life. You know, it's just that initial piece of like feeling confident and demonstrating that confidence of like, I know this is how you get better.
Yeah.
Like, you need to get on board, and I'm going to get on board, and we're going to do this together.
That first 2 weeks is critical.
Definitely.
Critical. And it's how often you see, oh, well, I'm busy. Like, you know, and I only want that person to see me. So, you know, and I'm busy. So, like, you know, it's going to be Monday and Friday next week, and then it's going to be Monday and Friday the following week. And then the person doesn't feel any bit different, and they fall off, or they self-discharge, or they go down to 1 time a week, and they just don't see the value of what you're offering. So, you know, I think caseload management, schedule management is something that just new grad PTs need a lot of help with.
Definitely.
And I understand that. It makes sense. They haven't seen cases through progression.
Right.
What do you think, Steph, is, you know, what do you think sets Concierge PT apart from other outpatient clinics that you've worked at, that you know about, and what makes us special, do you think?
I think a couple of things. I think our team culture here is exceptional. I think that staff come in here and they feel like, I matter here. I matter from like the whole scope of employees here. You know, I matter to Sean and Brooke, matter to Laura, I matter to my clinic director, I matter to the aides and the front desk. I make a difference here, and my presence matters here. So I think that, you know, we have a really good camaraderie here, a really good support system for one another here. I think that, you know, Concierge is a place where I know when I need help, I don't have to ask for it. Someone's already offering before I even have the thought, like, shoot, I really could use some help with whatever. Someone's already kind of coming behind me to support me, to pick up the slack, to give me a helping hand, and not having to ask for help, just knowing someone's going to come in and swoop in and do it for you is just such a unique experience and feeling from anywhere else that I've worked. I would say our whole body approach to patient care is unique to us. I think that, you know, sometimes you go to a place and the PT will get you better in that one area, but not necessarily emphasize, you know, every impairment and every goal or functional mobility area that you want to improve upon. And I think that's something that our whole team does really well here. And I think too, the way that we invest in our team here, from the time you start, if you're a new grad, through mentorship, through, you know, whatever area of growth you're looking to pursue, I think that Concierge does a really good job of figuring out what are the people on my team's passions and how do we turn that into a piece of their job so that they continue to be passionate about what they're doing. You know, are they interested in leadership? Great. Like, how do we pursue that? How do we gear them up to, you know, begin that journey? Are they interested in clinical education and taking students and managing interns? Great, we have plenty of opportunity for that. Mm-hmm. Or are they interested in, you know, social media, marketing for PT, things like that? I think that we are really good about listening to people on our team, like, what are you passionate about, and like, how do we incorporate that as part of your job so that you're passionate about patient care and you're also passionate about something else that brings you joy that can be facilitated in physical therapy.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. You know, I think, you know, you mentioned the whole body experience and treating the whole body, you know, and I think some people might look at that or hear that and think like, oh, well, like they just want to keep people there forever, you know, and like, it's funny because that's the opposite of what we're trying to do. Yeah. You know, what we're really trying to do is use our degrees, use our skill set, and make people move better and feel better. And honestly, fix problems that they didn't even know they had when they first came in, you know?
Right, and prevent them from having to come back, you know, 2 months later, right? If we fix the problem right the first time, like they're not coming back for the same problem next time.
Yeah, and I always talk about, you know, it takes a minute to grasp in a muscle group. You know, like why can't we do both sides? Why can't we do the whole body? Like it doesn't take that long. And it really makes a vast difference in people's lives.
Definitely.
All right, so I want to finish with a couple fun questions.
All right.
You have the choice of 3 dinner companions, dead or alive. All right. Who are they and why?
3 dinner companions, dead or alive. Okay, so I'm going with my grandma. She unfortunately has passed, but she was my best friend. She is just like, you know, a huge piece of why I am who I am today. And we would be having dessert for dinner because we both have major sweet tooth. So definitely she'd be one of them. I would say Jesus. My faith's really important to me, and I think that I have a lot of questions for him. A lot of questions.
Yeah, me too.
And a third person to sit down and have dinner with. Whew, Sean, I wasn't prepared for this one.
Oh, it's me? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, yeah, for sure. No, I'm just kidding. I would say a third one, I'd really like to sit down with Brene Brown. I listen to her podcast. I've read a lot of her books, and I have learned a lot from her, just as a person, as a leader, in terms of life skills. And so I'd really like to kind of pick her brain a little bit more about some of the content she's come out with.
Cool. Favorite book?
Favorite book
that you've read recently?
I would say The Nightingale. By Kristen Hanna. I'm a big historical fiction person, and it takes place during World War II and kind of the onset of before the Holocaust and things like that. And I think that's a really interesting historical time frame. And I think it's similar enough that you feel like you're getting a picture painted of what life was like then, but also, you know, different and in some respects not entirely historically accurate, but historically accurate enough.
Nice. Favorite movie?
So I'm not a big movie person, I have to be honest. I don't like to sit still very often, so this whole sitting here thing has been a lot for me.
Yeah, well, I can't tell by your fidgeting.
I know, right? Favorite movie, I would go with, I really like The Sound of Music, and I really like Rudy. I'm a sucker for a musical, and I'm a sucker for like a sport kind
underdog.
of underdog story. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Steph, for joining us today. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, how would they reach out to you?
You can call the Sutton Clinic. You can reach out to me via email, and any of that information can be available at the end of this podcast somewhere, probably.
Yeah. It'll be in the show notes.
In the show notes. That's the fancy term for that.
You can always just go to conciergephysicaltherapy.com.
That also works. A lot of good answers here. No, but thank you for having me on, Sean. This has been really fun to get to chat with you, and it's been great.
Awesome. Thank you.